My 7-year-old nephew looked up at me with those big brown eyes and asked the question that would change everything. "Auntie, why did Grandma call you a thief?" The sandwich I was making for him fell from my hands. My sister's kitchen suddenly felt like it was closing in on me. 23 years. 23 years I'd kept this secret buried. And now it was standing in front of me wearing dinosaur pajamas. You know what's worse than being called a thief by your own mother? Having to explain it to a child who thinks you hung the moon. But maybe it's time I told this story. Maybe holding it in all these years is what's been eating me alive. Our apartment was nothing special. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that doubled as our living room. Sarah and I shared a room with bunk beds that creaked every time one of us moved. Mom slept on the couch most nights because she said her bedroom reminded her too much of Dad. The walls were thin enough that we could hear the neighbors arguing about money every Friday night. Looking back, I think everyone in that building was struggling. Mom worked at a diner from 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Then she'd rush home, change clothes, and head to her job at the grocery store until 9 at night. On weekends, she cleaned houses for rich families across town. I watched her hands get rougher, her smile get smaller, and the light in her eyes fade a little more each day. I started working too. Nothing official because I was too young for most places to hire me legally. But Mrs. Chen, who ran the corner store, let me stock shelves after school for cash under the table. $20 here, $30 there. It wasn't much, but I'd slip it into Mom's purse when she wasn't looking. She never said anything about the extra money appearing. Maybe she thought she'd miscounted. Maybe she knew and just didn't want to acknowledge that her 15-year-old daughter was trying to help pay rent. Sarah didn't know how bad things were. I made sure of that. When she asked why we were eating beans and rice for the 3rd night in a row, I'd tell her it was because I loved beans and rice. When she wondered why Mom was never home for dinner, I'd make up stories about important meetings at work. When the electricity got shut off for 2 days, I turned it into an adventure, telling her we were camping indoors. The thing about being the older sister is that you grow up fast. You learn to put on a brave face even when you're scared. You learn to make miracles out of nothing. A can of tomato soup becomes a feast when you add enough crackers and tell enough jokes. Hand-me-down clothes become fashion statements when you know how to accessorize with confidence. But there was one thing I couldn't fix with creativity and determination. Mom's health was getting worse. All those long hours, all that stress, it was breaking her body down. She started getting these headaches that would leave her curled up in the dark, unable to move. The doctor at the free clinic said it was stress and exhaustion, prescribed rest she couldn't afford to take. That's when I met Marcus. He was 18, worked at the auto shop down the street from Mrs. Chen's store. He had this smile that made you forget your problems for a while, started walking me home from work, carrying my backpack, making me laugh with stupid jokes. For the first time since Dad died, I felt like maybe I could just be a regular teenager for a few minutes each day. Marcus knew about our situation, small neighborhood like ours. Everyone knew everyone's business. He'd sometimes, accidentally, buy too much food and bring it over, saying his mom made extra. We both knew it was a lie, but pride is a luxury you can't afford when your sister needs to eat. One day, Marcus told me about his cousin who worked at this high-end restaurant downtown. They were looking for someone to help with their catering events. The pay was incredible, $200 for a single night's work. Cash, no questions asked. The catch? You had to be 18. Just say you're 18, Marcus said. You look older anyway. They're not going to check ID for cash work. $200. That was almost a week of Mom's salary from the diner. I could work one event and give Mom a whole week off. Maybe those headaches would stop. Maybe she could actually sleep for once. I told myself I'd just do it once. One event, one lie. One night. The first event was at this mansion in the hills. The kind of place you only see in movies. Marble floors, chandeliers that cost more than our entire apartment building. and food that I couldn't even pronounce. They dressed us in these black uniforms and taught us how to carry trays without spilling, how to be invisible, how to anticipate what rich people needed before they asked. I was good at it. Years of taking care of Sarah had taught me to notice things, to read people. The hostess, Mrs. Whitman, even pulled me aside at the end of the night to compliment my work, handed me an extra $50 as a tip. $250 for 6 hours of work. I'd never held that much money in my life. I gave it all to Mom, told her Mrs. Chen had given me a bonus for helping with inventory. The lie came so easily it scared me, but seeing Mom's face relax, seeing her actually buy groceries without counting every penny, seeing her take a Saturday off for the first time in months, it felt worth it. So I did another event, then another. Every few weeks, I'd tell Mom I was sleeping over at my friend Jenny's house. Instead, I'd be serving champagne to people who spent more on a single bottle than we spent on rent. The money went to different things each time. New shoes for Sarah when hers fell apart. Medicine for Mom's headaches. The electricity bill that was 3 months overdue. This went on for 6 months. 6 months of lies and secret money. 6 months of watching our lives get a little bit easier. Mom even started smiling again. Sarah got to join the school choir because we could afford the uniform. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was taking care of my family the only way I knew how. Then came the night everything fell apart. It was supposed to be a simple event, a birthday party for some tech executive's wife. Same routine. Serve drinks, clear plates, be invisible. But halfway through the night, I heard a familiar laugh from across the room. My blood turned to ice. There, talking to the hostess, was Mrs. Patterson, one of the women whose house Mom cleaned on weekends. Our eyes met across the room. I saw the recognition, then the confusion, then the understanding dawn on her face. She knew I wasn't supposed to be there. She knew I wasn't 18. She knew my mother had no idea where I was. I spent the rest of the event in panic mode. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped a tray of champagne glasses. Every time Mrs. Patterson looked in my direction, I felt like I was going to throw up. When the event finally ended, I practically ran out of there. Didn't even wait for my pay. Marcus was waiting outside to drive me home like always. I told him what happened. He said maybe Mrs. Patterson wouldn't say anything. Maybe she understood. Maybe she'd keep quiet. She didn't. 2 days later, I came home from school to find Mom sitting at the kitchen table. Her face was stone. Sarah was at a friend's house, thank God. Mom didn't say anything at first. Just pushed a piece of paper across the table. It was the business card for the catering company. Mrs. Patterson says she saw you serving drinks at the Whitman party. Mom said. Her voice was so quiet I could barely hear her. Says you've been lying about staying at Jenny's house. Says you've been working illegal jobs and hiding money from me. I tried to explain, tried to tell her about the bills, about her headaches, about wanting to help, but every word just made her face harder. So you're a liar and a thief, she said. That word. Thief. It cut deeper than anything else she could have said. I wasn't stealing, I said. I was trying to help. You were killing yourself working 3 jobs. Sarah needed things. We needed money. You stole my right to take care of my own children, Mom said. Tears were running down her face now. You stole my dignity. You made me into a mother who can't provide for her family. A mother whose child has to lie and sneak around because she's such a failure. You're not a failure, I said. I was crying too. You're doing everything you can. I just wanted to help. By lying to me. By making me look like a fool in front of Mrs. Patterson. She asked me if I knew my daughter was working illegal jobs. Asked if I was aware my 15-year-old was pretending to be 18. Do you know how that felt? Finding out from a stranger that my own daughter has been lying to me for months? The argument went on for hours. Mom said I'd betrayed her trust. Said I'd made her look like a bad mother. Said I'd stolen her pride. That last one hurt the most because I knew it was true. In trying to help, I'd taken away the one thing she had left, her identity as a provider for her children. She didn't talk to me for a week, a whole week of silence in that tiny apartment. Sarah knew something was wrong but didn't understand what. I'd hear Mom crying at night through the thin walls. During the day, she'd leave my meals on the counter and walk away without looking at me. Finally, on Sunday night, she came into my room, sat on the edge of my bed like she used to when I was little. "I know you were trying to help," she said, "but you're still a child. It's not your job to save this family, it's mine." "But you're drowning," I said. "I could see you drowning and I had to do something." "Then you talk to me. You don't lie. You don't sneak around. You don't steal my choice to know what's happening in my own home." She never really forgave me. Not fully, even after I apologized 100 times, even after I promised never to lie again. Something broke between us that night, a trust that we never quite rebuilt. The word thief became her weapon whenever we fought after that. When I wanted to go to a party at 17, she'd say she couldn't trust a thief. When I got my first real job at 18, she made comments about hoping I wouldn't steal from the register. When I moved out for college on a scholarship I'd earned, she asked if I was sure I hadn't stolen someone else's spot. Sarah never knew about any of it. Mom and I had a silent agreement to keep it from her. She grew up thinking we were just a normal, struggling family who made it through hard times together. She didn't know about the lies, the fights, the word that hung between Mom and me like a knife. I kept my distance after college, visited for holidays, called on birthdays, but that was it. The wound was too deep. Every time Mom looked at me, I could see her remembering. Every time she called me her oldest daughter instead of my name, I knew she was thinking thief. Marcus and I stayed friends. He felt guilty about the whole thing, said he should never have suggested the catering job, but I didn't blame him. We were kids trying to solve adult problems with kid solutions. He went on to become a mechanic, owns his own shop now, still texts me every holiday to check in. Sarah became a teacher, married a good man, had 2 kids, my nephew, the one who asked me the question, and a little girl who looks just like Sarah did at that age. Sarah doesn't know the full story of what happened when we were young. She just knows Mom and I have history. Which brings us back to that kitchen, to that moment when my nephew asked why Grandma called me a thief. Sarah had stepped out to get milk from the store. It was just me and little Tommy making sandwiches for lunch. Mom was in the living room, dozed off in her chair. She'd been living with Sarah for a year now, ever since her health made it impossible for her to live alone. I'd been visiting more often lately, trying to bridge the gap, trying to pretend that word didn't still hang between us, but apparently Mom had said something. Maybe she didn't mean for Tommy to hear. Maybe it slipped out during one of her confused moments. Her memory isn't what it used to be. "When did Grandma say that?" I asked Tommy, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yesterday. She was looking at old pictures and saw one of you. She said, 'There's my little thief.' I asked her what she meant, but she just shook her head and put the picture away. My little thief. Even now, 23 years later, that's what I am to her." I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled Tommy onto my lap. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes love looks like betrayal, that sometimes helping hurts, that sometimes the right thing and the wrong thing are the same thing? "A long time ago," I started, "when your mom was little and I was a teenager, our family didn't have much money. Grandma was working really hard to take care of us after Grandpa died." Tommy nodded. He knew about Grandpa from pictures. "I wanted to help Grandma, but I didn't tell her I was helping. I kept it a secret, and when she found out, she felt like I had stolen something from her." "What did you steal?" "Her trust, her pride, the chance to make her own choices. Sometimes, Tommy, you can steal things that aren't objects. You can steal feelings. You can steal someone's dignity without meaning to." "Did you say sorry?" "Many times." "Then why is she still mad?" I looked toward the living room where Mom was sleeping. Her hair was completely gray now. Her hands, once rough from work, were now soft and frail. The fighter who worked 3 jobs was now a tired old woman who needed help remembering to take her medicine. "I don't know if she's still mad," I said. "I think she's still hurt, and sometimes hurt lasts longer than anger." Sarah came back then, carrying milk and looking at my face with concern. She saw I'd been crying. Tommy immediately ran to her, announcing that he knew why Grandma called Auntie a thief. Sarah's eyes widened, looking between me and our mother's sleeping form. That night, after Tommy was in bed, Sarah and I sat on her back porch. I told her everything, every detail I'd kept from her for over 2 decades. The catering jobs, the lies, the fight, the word that had defined my relationship with Mom ever since. Sarah was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said something that broke my heart all over again. "She talks about you all the time, you know, when you're not here." She tells Tommy stories about how brave you were after Dad died, how you took care of me, how you made sure I never went without, even when we had nothing. She does? Yesterday, when she called you a thief, she was holding that picture and crying. She said, "There's my little thief who stole all the hard parts so her sister wouldn't have to carry them." We both cried then, 2 grown women crying on a porch about wounds that never quite healed. The next morning, I brought Mom her coffee. She was having one of her clear days, where her mind was sharp and present. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. "I heard you talking to Tommy yesterday," she said, "about the thief comment." I nodded, not trusting my voice. I shouldn't have said that, not where he could hear. "It's okay, Mom." "No, it's not." She took a shaky breath. "I've been calling you a thief for 23 years. But you know what you really stole?" I waited. "You stole my chance to watch you be a child. You grew up too fast because I couldn't provide enough. You became an adult at 15 because I failed as a mother. That's what I've really been angry about all these years. Not the lies or the money, but the fact that my 15-year-old daughter had to save us because I couldn't." "You didn't fail, Mom. You worked 3 jobs. You did everything you could, and it wasn't enough. So you stepped up, and I punished you for it." She reached out, took my hand with her fragile fingers. "I called you a thief, but you were just a child trying to hold your family together. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it took me this long to say it." We talked for hours that morning, really talked, about Dad's death, about the struggle, about the choices we both made, about the anger and hurt we'd carried for so long. Mom admitted she'd known about some of the money I'd hidden in her purse. She'd chosen not to say anything at the time because we needed it too badly. The catering job was what crossed the line for her, not because of the money, but because of the danger I'd put myself in, working late nights, lying about where I was. "I was so scared," she said. "When Mrs. Patterson told me, all I could think was, what if something had happened to you? What if you'd been hurt, and I wouldn't have even known where you were?" That's what the thief comment had really been about. Not the money or the lies, but the fear. The terrible realization that her 15-year-old daughter had been in potentially dangerous situations, and she'd had no idea. The anger had been easier than admitting how terrified she'd been. Tommy wandered into the room then, still in his dinosaur pajamas. He climbed onto Mom's lap, careful of her delicate frame. "Grandma, are you still mad at Auntie for being a thief?" Mom looked at me, then at Tommy. "No, sweet boy. Auntie was never really a thief. She was a hero, and sometimes Grandma gets confused about the difference. So why did you call her that?" "Because sometimes when we're hurt or scared, we say things we don't mean, and sometimes those words stick around longer than they should. But you know what?" "What?" "I'm going to tell you a story about your brave Auntie. About how when she was just a teenager, she took care of your mommy and me. How she made sure we had food and electricity and shoes that fit. How she carried weights that were too heavy for her shoulders because she loved us that much. And she did." Right there in Sarah's living room, Mom told Tommy stories I'd never heard her tell, about the time I stayed up all night to help Sarah with a school project, about how I learned to fix the leaky sink from a library book because we couldn't afford a plumber, about the Christmas I made presents out of cardboard and crayons because there was no money for real gifts, and how Sarah treasured those handmade things more than any store-bought toy. With each story, I felt something loosening in my chest, a knot I'd carried for 23 years, slowly coming undone. That was 3 months ago. Mom's health has gotten worse since then. The clear days are fewer and farther between. But on the days when she's present, really present, she makes sure to tell me she loves me. No qualifiers, no old wounds. Just love. Last week she had a particularly bad episode. Didn't recognize any of us for almost 2 days. When she finally came back to herself, she looked at me with panic in her eyes. Did I say it again? Did I call you that word? No, Mom. You called me sweetheart. She relaxed then, sinking back into her chair. Good, good. I don't want that to be what you remember. When I'm gone, I don't want you remembering the wrong words I said. I want you to remember that you saved us. You saved us, and I was too proud to see it. Mom, don't talk like that. I need to, while I can. While my mind is clear. She gripped my hand with surprising strength. You were never a thief. You were a 15-year-old girl doing her best with an impossible situation, and I turned your sacrifice into shame. That's my burden to carry, not yours. I think about that conversation a lot now, about how we carry words with us like scars, about how a single word, thief, shaped 23 years of my life, about how long it takes to forgive and be forgiven. Tommy doesn't ask about the thief comment anymore. As far as he's concerned, Grandma explained it, and that's that. Kids are good at accepting new truths and moving on. Adults, we hold on to our wounds like they're precious stones, but I'm learning to let go. Every visit with Mom, every story she tells about our past that recasts me as the hero instead of the thief, helps heal something. We're rewriting our history together, one conversation at a time. Sarah knows the whole truth now, and instead of being upset that I kept it from her, she's grateful. She tells me she always knew something was off about those years but was too young to understand what. Now she sees the full picture, a family in crisis, held together by a teenager's determination and an exhausted mother's pride. You both did the best you could, she told me. You with the lying and working, Mom with the anger and hurt. You were both trying to save us in your own ways. She's right, I think. We were all doing our best with the tools we had. Mom had her 3 jobs and her pride. I had my youth and my willingness to lie. Neither were perfect solutions, but they kept us fed, housed, and together. The other day, I was helping Sarah clean out Mom's closet, looking for clothes that might be easier for her to manage. In a shoebox on the top shelf, I found something that stopped me cold. It was an envelope, yellowed with age, with my name on it in Mom's handwriting. Inside was $250 in old bills and a note. I knew about the catering job before Mrs. Patterson told me. I followed you one night. Saw you in that uniform serving those rich people. I was proud and terrified and angry all at once. Proud that you were so capable, terrified that you were in danger, angry that you felt you had to do it. I should have stopped you then, but we needed the money too badly, so I let you keep going, and I hated myself for it. When Mrs. Patterson told me, it was almost a relief. Finally, I had an excuse to make you stop, to be the parent instead of the beneficiary. But I handled it all wrong. I turned my self-hatred into anger at you. This is the money from your last catering job, the one you ran from. They dropped it off the next day. I kept it all these years because I couldn't figure out if it belonged to you or if keeping it made me a thief too. I guess we're both thieves then. 2 thieves who stole and sacrificed for love. Mom. The date on the note was from just a year after our big fight. She'd written it, but never given it to me. Carried it through every move, every life change. For over 20 years, I showed it to Sarah. We both cried. Then we laughed at the absurdity of it all. $250 that had traveled through decades. A physical reminder of the night everything changed. What are you going to do with it? Sarah asked. I thought about it. This money that had caused so much pain, that represented so much sacrifice and misunderstanding. I could keep it, frame the note as some kind of cathartic reminder, but that felt too much like holding on to the hurt. Instead, I took Tommy and his little sister to the toy store, told them Grandma had given me money to buy them something special. We spent all $250 on toys and books and art supplies. Tommy picked out a cash register toy, which felt oddly appropriate. His sister chose a doctor kit, complete with a toy stethoscope that really worked. When we brought the toys back to show Mom, she was having one of her clear moments. She saw the toys, saw the empty envelope in my hand, and understood immediately. "You found it," she said. "Yeah, Mom, I found it. I should have given that to you years ago. It found its way to me when it was supposed to." She smiled then, watching Tommy ring up imaginary groceries on his toy register. From thieves to providers to gift givers. We've come full circle. That's the thing about family wounds. They don't heal in straight lines. They circle back, loop around, surprise you with their persistence and their possibility for redemption. The word thief that once cut like a knife has become something else now, a reminder of how far we've come, how much we've forgiven, how love can be complicated and messy and still be love. Mom probably doesn't have much time left. The doctors speak in months now, not years. Sometimes she looks at me and I can see she's trying to remember who I am, but then she'll have a moment of clarity and call me her brave girl, her helper, her hero, never thief. Not anymore. I've started telling Tommy and his sister stories about their grandma, about the woman who worked 3 jobs, who made magic out of government cheese and food stamps, who was too proud to accept help but eventually learned that love means letting people in, even when it hurts your pride. And I tell them about forgiveness, how it's not a one-time thing but a choice you make over and over, how sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones trying the hardest to love us, how words can wound, but they can also heal, given enough time and truth. Tommy asked me recently if I ever stole anything for real. I told him yes. I stole time with my family by lying. I stole my mother's choice to parent me. I stole my own childhood by trying to be an adult too soon. But mostly I stole the chance for us to struggle together honestly, which might have brought us closer instead of driving us apart. But Grandma forgave you. She did, and I forgave her for not understanding. That's what families do. We hurt each other, we heal each other, and we hope the healing is stronger than the hurt. He seemed satisfied with that answer. Kids usually are. They understand forgiveness in a way adults sometimes forget. They know how to let go of yesterday's fights in favor of today's games. I think about that 15-year-old girl sometimes, the one who thought she could save everyone, who carried secrets like armor and money like medicine. I want to tell her it's okay, that the mess she's about to make will eventually become something beautiful, that the word thief will one day transform into survivor and then into daughter again. But she wouldn't believe me. She's too busy trying to hold the world together with $250 and a lie, too focused on tomorrow's rent to think about forgiveness 23 years down the line. So instead, I honor her the only way I know how, by telling this story, by admitting that sometimes we steal things, trust, dignity, childhood, choice, in the name of love, and sometimes it takes decades to give them back. Mom is sleeping now in the next room. Sarah is making dinner. The kids are playing some elaborate game involving the toy cash register and the doctor kit. And I'm sitting here, thinking about how a single question from a 7-year-old opened up 23 years of hurt and healing. "Auntie, why did Grandma call you a thief?" "Because I was one, Tommy. I stole out of love and fear and desperation. I stole because I didn't know what else to do. I stole because sometimes that's what survival looks like when you're 15 and drowning. But more importantly, your grandma called me a thief because she needed someone to blame for the fact that life had gotten so hard, and it was easier to be angry at me than at the universe that took your grandpa. Easier to call me a thief than to admit she needed the help I was trying to give. We've forgiven each other now, your grandma and me. It took 23 years, but we got there, and maybe that's the real story. Not the theft or the anger or the hurt, but the forgiveness. The long, winding road back to each other. Tomorrow, Mom might not remember any of this. She might look at me and see a stranger, or she might call me a thief again, lost in some memory loop from decades past. But today she knows I'm her daughter. Today she knows she's loved. Today the word thief has no power over us, And that's enough. After 23 years, that's more than enough. The sun is setting now, painting Sarah's kitchen golden. Tommy has abandoned his cash register to help set the table, carefully placing forks and knives like they're precious treasures. His sister is giving Mom a checkup with her toy stethoscope, declaring her heartbeat perfect. Sarah catches my eye and smiles, that knowing smile of someone who understands that family is complicated and messy and worth it anyway. I think this is what redemption looks like. Not a grand gesture or a perfect apology, but this, a family dinner where everyone knows the worst of each other and chooses to stay anyway, where the word thief has been replaced by the sound of children laughing, where an old woman who once couldn't forgive now holds my hand and calls me brave. There's probably more to say. There always is with family stories, but for now, this is enough. The story of how I became a thief at 15 and spent 23 years stealing back my mother's love. The story of how one word can define you until it doesn't anymore. The story of how even the deepest wounds can heal if you give them enough time and truth and tears. So if you're watching this and you've got your own word, your own thief or liar or failure that someone branded you with, know that it doesn't have to be forever. Words have power, but forgiveness has more. And sometimes, the person who hurt you the most is also the person who loves you the most. They just didn't know how to show it until it was almost too late. If you think this hit hard, wait until you hear what I'm sharing next. Click here to watch it now.